I have never experienced a presentation like that of the F40. When the car was unveiled, a buzz passed through the room followed by thunderous applause. No one, except for close associates of Enzo Ferrari, had yet seen it. Indeed, the company had cloaked the development and testing of that car in unusual secrecy, and the surprise at such a stylistic leap was almost shock. They're the words of Ermanno Bonfiglioli, the head of special projects for Ferrari, in the 1980s, and one of the creators of the epical F40, talking about how his day went on 21 July 1987, Ferrari F40. By now, you'll know the salient facts about the F40. It's an evolution of the 288. It's the last car that Mr. Enzo Ferrari ever approved. Gordon Murray didn't like it, but Nigel Mansell did. All that stuff. A while back, Ferrari lined up 3 men who were instrumental in its creation to remember what it felt like to develop and launch one of the world's most memorable cars. 2012. Top Gear's Guide to Buying a Used Minute. 12. Ferrari F40. According to Bonfiglioli, it felt very brief. The time frame was unusual, he says. Within the very short arc of 13 months, the chassis and bodywork moving ahead quickly and at the same pace as the powertrain. Ferrari F40. To put that into perspective, creating a new car is a process that usually takes years. Just think about how many eyebrows that Alfa's 2.5-year development program for the new Giulia raised. Now consider that Bonfiglioli's team designed, tested, and built the Ferrari F40 in just 13 months. From the outset, the F40 was built as a race car for the road. Yes, it's a tired old trope, but it actually applies in this case. With a tubular steel space frame chassis, bonded Kevlar panels, and carbon fiber doors, bonnet, Ferrari F40. This made it lightweight, just 1100 g. But, as you may have already surmised, that wasn't the only goal for the 40. In fact, it feels like everything was a goal. As Pino Farinai Pensmith and F40 designer Leonardo Fioravanti explains. We threw ourselves headlong into the work, says Fioravanti. Extensive research at the wind tunnel went into aerodynamic optimization to achieve coefficients appropriate for the most powerful Ferrari road car ever, Ferrari F40. What he's referring to here is perhaps best boiled down as a relentless pursuit of speed. Again, it's another tired trope, but when the car in question is the first production car to ever breach the 200 mph mark, you're forced to accept that. Sometimes cliches really do fit. Making a slippery body is one thing, but making something that sticks in our minds 3 decades hence is another thing entirely. Fioravanti explains the magic behind it this way. Its style matches its performance. The low bonnet with a very tiny overhang, the NACA air vents, and the rear spoiler, which my colleague Aldo Broverone placed at right angles, made it famous. And let's not forget that Bonfiglioli's team had fitted one of the all-time great engines under the one-piece, clamshell bonnet, the 2.9-liter, turbocharged Ferrari V8. We paid maximum attention to the weight of the engine, thanks also to the extensive use of magnesium, such as oil sump, cylinder head covers, intake manifolds, and gearbox bell housing were in this material that cost 5 times as much as aluminum alloy, and that was never used in such quantity. In subsequent production cars, Ferrari F40. So, the F40 was lightweight, powerful, high-tech, and sleek. But it was a bit of a dog. Ferrari test driver Dario Benuzzi was instrumental in ironing out the manifold bumps that cropped up during its short development after all. Such an avant-garde car doesn't just fall into place in little more than a year. Ferrari F40. The handling of the first prototypes was poor, he says. To tame the power of the engine and make it compatible with a road model, we needed to subject every aspect of the car to countless tests, from the turbochargers to the braking system, from the shock absorbers to the tires. Benuzzi worked with Bonfiglioli's team to try to reconcile the vast power, lightweight, and new-age Kevlar carbon tech that was being thrown into the 40. And to compound the already fairly solid challenge, the F40 had to be raw, uncompromising, and a riposte to the overly soft direction that contemporaneous Ferraris had taken. Enzo Ferrari. We obtained precisely the car we wanted, with few comforts and no compromises, he says, with no power steering, power brakes, or electronic devices. It demands the skill and commitment of the driver, but generously repays it. We're inclined to agree. So they made sure to make it one to remember. That was maybe the most criticized Ferrari even by Luca di Montezemolo, who said, with the exception of its good looks, I was utterly disappointed. This was clearly the worst product Ferrari had developed for some time. Power, torque, and suspension. Power came from an enlarged, high-revving 2,936cc 2.9-liter 179.2Q inversion of the 288 GTO's II4/90 degrees, twin-turbocharged, and intercooled V8 engine generating a peak power output of 478 PS, 471 EP, 352 Q at 7,000 RPM, and 577 M426 of torque at 4,000 Rml, stated by the manufacturer. Gearing, torque curves, and actual power output differed among the cars. The F40 did without a catalytic converter until 1990, when U.S. regulations made them a requirement for emissions control reasons. The flanking exhaust pipes guide exhaust gases from each bank of cylinders, while the central pipe guides gases released from the wastegate of the turbochargers. The F40's twin-turbocharged V8 would be Ferrari's final forced induction until the California T in 2014. 1991 Ferrari F40 US spec. The suspension setup was similar to the GTO's double wishbone setup, though many parts were upgraded and settings were changed. The unusually low ground clearance prompted Ferrari to include the ability to raise the vehicle's ground clearance when necessary for later cars via